Welcome all of you to my YouTube channel Statistics and Data Science. In this tutorial, we are going to see the introduction to neural network. That is, we try to see what is neural network and how it works. So let's go. First of all, we see the introduction to neural network. A neural network is a supervised machine learning algorithm, which means that we provide it input data containing the independent variables and the output data that contains the dependent variable. For example, our independent variables are smoking, obesity, and exercise. The dependent variable is whether a person is diabetic or not. From these three independent variable, we try to predict our dependent variable, that is it is diabetic or not. In the beginning of the neural network makes some random prediction. These predictions are matched with the correct output, and the error or difference between the predicted values and the actual values is calculated. The function that finds the difference between actual value and the propagated, that is predicted value, is called as cost function. The cost here refers to error. Actually, cost function is basically a error. Our objective is to minimize the cost function. While training the neural network basically refers to minimizing the cost function. We will see how to perform this task in the further discussion. First of all, you can see this is the neural network. This is the input layer. This is the output layer. These are the weights. The x1, x2, x3 be the features that we provide to the input layer. W1, W2, W3 are basically the weights, and this is the formula for output layer. Here we try to multiply this x features with the weights, and plus the b is nothing but bias. We can see what is this in the further discussion. First of all, we see the feed forward step. Neural network consists of two basic steps, that is feed forward step and back propagation. Feed forward step consists of two main steps, and back propagation also consists of two steps. So let's see feed forward step. In feed forward part of neural network, prediction are made based on the values in the input nodes and the weights. If you look at the neural network in the above figure, that is nothing but this figure, you will see that we have three features in the above neural network, that is nothing but x1, x2, x3. Therefore we have three nodes in the first layer, also known as input layer. The weight of neural network are basically the strings that we have to adjust in order to able to correctly predict our output. For now, just remember that for each input feature we have one weight. Weight is just try to we use it to for accuracy, increasing our accuracy. We try to adjust the weight and increase our accuracy of our target variable, or increase our accuracy of prediction. In the first step of feed forward step is calculate the dot product between the input feature and the weights. The nodes in the input layer are connected with the output layer via three weight parameter. The output layer, the values in the input nodes are multiplied with their corresponding weights and are added together. Finally, the bias term is added to the sum. The b is in the above figure is a bias term. You can see here the multiplication of all the features. We have to add this multiplication of these features with the weight plus b. B is nothing but the bias term. So bias term is very important here. Suppose if we have a person who doesn't smoke and is not obese and doesn't exercise, the sum of the product of the input nodes and the weights will be 0. In that case, the output will always be 0 no matter how much we train our algorithm. Therefore, in order to be able to make prediction, even if we do not have any non-zero information about the person, we need a bias term. The bias term is necessary to make robust our neural network. Bias term is basically used for robustness of a neural network. Mathematically, in the feed forward step, this is the first step. We try to multiply the all input feature with the weight, and this is the bias term. You can see x1 w1 plus x2 w2, x3 w3 plus b. B is nothing but bias term. So now we are going for second step in the feed forward network. Pass the result of the first step, that is nothing but multiplication of all input variables with the weights plus the bias term. that is the result of first step, pass it through activation function. The result from the step 1 can be set of any values. However, in our output we have the values in the form of 1 and 0. We want our output to be in the format 0 and 1. To do so, we need an activation function which scratches the input values between 1 and 0. One such activation function is sigmoid function. The sigmoid function returns 0.5 when input is 0. It returns value close to 1 if input is large positive number. In case of negative input, the sigmoid function output will be close to 0. Basically, this is the formula for sigmoid function. Sigmoid function try to classify our input into the output as a binary function, into a binary class. Output will be binary when we pass our input to the our activation function. I already explained sigmoid function using Python with step-by-step explanation. So I will give link in the description of that video, so you can see that video using that link. So now we are going in the second step of neural network, that is back propagation step. In the beginning, before you do any training, the neural network makes random prediction which are far from the correct. That is, prediction are first in the first step, a neural network try to predict our output randomly and try to check the correctness of that prediction. Is it from the actual values, is it close to actual value or not? The principle behind the working of neural network is simple. We start by letting the neural network make random prediction about the output. We then compare the predicted output of the neural network with the actual output. Next, we fine tune our weights and bias in such a manner that our predicted output becomes closer to the actual output, which is basically known as training the neural network. In the back propagation, we try to check is it our actual output is close to the predicted output. If it is not, then we try to adjust the weights and bias. That is nothing but you can see here. We try to adjust this weight and the bias to change to try to classify our target variable very correctly, or try to increase the accuracy by adjusting the weights and the bias. So back propagation also have two steps. First step is calculating the cost. The first step in the back propagation section is to find the cost of the prediction. The cost of the prediction can simply be calculated by finding the difference between the predicted output and the actual output. The higher the difference, higher will be the cost. There are several other ways to find the cost, but we will use mean square error cost function. The cost function is simply the function that finds the cost of given prediction. That is nothing but difference between the predicted and observed. You can see this is the formula for mean square error. Summation of predicted minus observed square upon total number of observation n. In the second steps, in the feed for back propagation, we try to minimize the cost. Our ultimate purpose in fine tune the knobs of our neural network in such a way that cost will be minimized. If you look at our neural network, you will notice that we can only control the weights and bias. Everything else is beyond our control. We cannot control the inputs, we cannot control the dot products, we cannot manipulate the sigmoid function. In order to minimize the cost, we need to find the weight and the bias values for which the cost function returns the smallest value. The smaller the cost, more correct our predictions. This is an optimization problem where we have to find functions minima. To find the minima of a function, we can use gradient descent. For minimization of the cost, for that we have to optimize our algorithm. For that we use gradient descent algorithm. In that gradient descent algorithm, we try to find the minimum of the function of the cost function. So how gradient descent work? Find the partial derivative of the cost function with this, which here cost function is nothing but mean square error. Find the partial derivative of the cost function with respect to each weight and the bias, and subtract the result from the existing weight values to get a new weight value. We try to adjust our new weight. We try to adjust our previous weight using that new weight. If the cost increase with the increase in the weight, the derivative will return the positive value. which will then subtracted from the existing value. If cost is increased with increasing weight, then we have to decrease that weight. For that, our derivative value will be positive. That's why our new weight will be smaller than the previous. On other hand, if cost is decreasing with an increasing the weight, a negative value will be written, which will be added to the existing weight value, since the negative into negative is positive. So if you have if our cost is decreasing with an increase in the weight, then we have negative value of our derivative, so that our weight will be increased than the previous. That's why our prediction will make very correctly. So this is the required algorithm. First of all, feed forward network, we have feed forward step, then back propagation step. In the feed forward step, we try to make a dot product of the input feature and the weights, and also we try to pass it from the activation function. In the back propagation step, we try to calculate the cost, and we try to minimize this cost using the gradient descent algorithm. And here we use cost as a mean square error. Gradient descent try to readjust the weights and the bias which are used in the here we can see we try to adjust this weights and the bias. This is the main task of training our neural network, is that we try to adjust this weight and this bias. This is the basically the training of our neural network. So this is the introduction to neural network, how a neural network works. So these are the two steps which are very important in the neural network. So thank you all of you. Stay tuned. Please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon to get notification of my new videos.